My neighbor Janet had been depositing $812 a month since her husband passed in the spring of 2021. She showed me the letter one afternoon over coffee. Right there on the SSA award notice, second line from the top, 812. She was proud of it. Said at least she had that. 3 years she deposited that check. 3 years I sat on that porch without asking the question I should have asked the day she got it. That was spring 2021. By October 2023, she was depositing $1,460 a month. The SSA 10 made that happen. One form, 5 pages, and a phone call. She had been leaving $648 a month on the table for 31 months. That is over $20,000 she will never see again. SSA mailed the death benefit paperwork. They sent the Medicare notice. They sent the annual cost of living adjustment letters every January. They did not mail her the form that would have paid her $600 more every single month. Nobody at SSA broke any rule by not sending it. The system simply does not teach you what it does not send. My name is Dale Corbin. I am 68, I am not a lawyer, and I am not from the government. I read the forms myself because I had to. This is how to check. Verify everything against ssa.gov before you act on any of it. Today, I'm going to walk you through the SSA 10, the form that starts the survivor benefit process, and 4 more things that go with it that rarely get mentioned in the same conversation. Each one takes about 10 minutes to check. I will give you the exact SSA source and what to say when you call. The last thing I covered today has a hard clock on it. It is a rule buried in the survivor benefit eligibility requirements, and if you are a widow or widower who has been thinking about remarrying, you need to stay with me until I get there. Because once this window closes, it does not reopen. The eligibility I'm going to cover in a few minutes is the reason that final point matters. Stay with me. How does a widow collect a benefit for 3 years and still leave a larger one sitting uncollected? Because SSA does not volunteer the comparison. They pay you what you applied for, and what else you may be entitled to check is on you to ask. Number 1, the SSA 10. The application for widows or widowers insurance benefits. That is the form's full name. A lot of people hear survivor benefits and assume they already filed for them when they were handling the paperwork right after a spouse died. Sometimes they did. A lot of times they filed for their own retirement benefit instead because they were already 62 or older and that was the form they knew about. The SSA 10 is specifically for the deceased spouse's earnings record. It is a different application from the standard retirement benefit form, and SSA will process whichever one you hand them without suggesting there might be a better option. Per 2026 SSA rules, verify current eligibility at ssa.gov. A surviving spouse, meaning you were legally married to the deceased worker, may apply as early as age 60. If you are disabled, age 50. If you are caring for the deceased worker's child under age 16 or disabled, there is no minimum age requirement. The benefit amount depends on the deceased worker's earnings record and the age at which you file. SSA pays a percentage of the deceased worker's primary insurance amount. At age 60, that percentage is 71.5%. At your own full retirement age, it reaches 100%. Those rates are published at ssa.gov and should be verified before you count on them. I mean, think about that for a second. If your spouse had higher lifetime earnings than you, and you filed for your own smaller benefit, you may be leaving a larger monthly check uncollected. That is what Janet was doing for 3 years. What to say when you call. I want to request a survivor benefit estimate based on my deceased spouse's earnings record. I have not filed a survivor benefit application, and I want to compare it to what I am currently receiving. That sentence, write it down. They will pull your record and tell you whether an application makes sense to pursue. They will not usually volunteer this comparison on their own. Keep in mind that if your own retirement benefit is already higher than what the survivor benefit would pay, switching does not gain you anything. But you will not know until you ask, and the call to 1-800-772-1213 is free. What comes next is the part that still does not make sense to most people who go through it. Number 2, the switching strategy. This is the one SSA almost never explains. When you are a surviving spouse, you have 2 benefits potentially available to you: your own retirement benefit and the survivor benefit from your spouse's record. You cannot collect both at their full amounts simultaneously, but you can control the order in which you use them, and that sequence can matter significantly. Option A. Start collecting survivor benefits as early as age 60 at the reduced rate and let your own retirement benefit grow. Your own retirement benefit increases roughly 8% per year between your full retirement age and age 70 under SSA's delayed retirement credit rules, which you can verify at ssa.gov. So if your own benefit at full retirement age would be $900, by age 70 it could be considerably higher. You collect the survivor benefit for those years, then switch to your own at 70. Option B. Collect your own retirement benefit first, then switch to the survivor benefit later if it ends up being higher. The right sequence depends on your ages, your respective earnings records, and your health. SSA will not walk you through this comparison unless you ask for it directly. And somehow it gets worse. A lot of people who know about survivor benefits still do not know they can delay their own retirement while collecting survivor, because SSA sends a pamphlet that describes both benefits separately and never shows you the math on using them in sequence. What Janet did not know was that she had been eligible to file the SSA 10 and receive the larger survivor benefit the month her husband died, while leaving her own retirement record alone to grow. Instead, she filed her own benefit first because that was the form she knew about. When you call SSA about this comparison, give them a specific question. Ask whether there are multiple benefit options on your record and which sequence of claiming would result in the highest lifetime total. Ask them to compare starting survivor benefits now versus starting your own retirement benefit first. They can run those numbers. They just will not run them unprompted. Ask specifically for the survivor benefit estimate at your current age and at your full retirement age. Then ask what your own benefit would be at age 70 if you delayed. Write both numbers down before you hang up. Everything was in place for Janet to make a much better decision than the one she made by default. She just did not know what to ask. Now, you could stop after filing the SSA 10. A lot of people do. But stopping there means missing the rest of what I am about to cover. Before I get to the next one, if you have found this useful so far, subscribe. New videos go up every week on exactly this kind of thing: benefits and forms that SSA will not mail you. Now let me keep going, because the next one catches people by surprise. Enter the divorced surviving spouse, an entire category of people who may qualify for survivor benefits and almost never know it. Number 3, the divorced surviving spouse rule. A lot of people assume survivor benefits are only for people who were still married when their ex-spouse died. The rule casts a wider net than that. If you were married for at least 10 years before the divorce and your former spouse has since died, you may qualify for survivor benefits on their record. Same SSA 10 form, same basic structure, different relationship on paper. Per 2026 rules, verify current figures at ssa.gov. To qualify, you must be at least 60 years old or 50 if you have a disability. You must have been married to the deceased worker for at least 10 years, and you must currently be unmarried, or if you remarried at or after age 60. That last condition matters. I will come back to it. But the core point is this. The 10-year threshold is exact. The threshold is 10 years, counted to the day. A 9-year marriage falls outside this rule. 10 years and 1 day puts you in, and SSA counts precisely. A lot of divorced women and men who were married for 10 or more years are collecting their own smaller retirement benefit right now, with no idea their former spouse's record even exists as an option. That is a lot of money sitting invisible in a file nobody thought to request. To check, call SSA at 1-800-772-1213 and tell them you were married for more than 10 years to a former spouse who has since passed away, and that you want to know whether you may qualify for survivor benefits on their record. Give them the full legal name and date of birth. SSA can often locate the record from that information alone. The county probate court likely has the death certificate in public records. A genealogy service or the former spouse's family may be able to confirm the Social Security number. It takes some digging, but the monthly check at the end of that dig may be worth considerably more than what you are receiving right now. That covers who may qualify and from which records. But there is a timing question that applies to everyone, current, surviving spouse, or former, and it is where a lot of families leave straightforward money behind. Number 4, the lump sum death payment and the back pay window. Two separate things that come up in the same conversation, but work very differently from each other. The lump sum death payment is a one-time payment of $255 paid to the surviving spouse or dependent child of a deceased worker who had Social Security coverage. The form is SSA 8. You apply for it alongside your survivor benefit application, usually at the same time. $255 is a modest number, but it belongs to the family, and SSA is not calling to remind you it exists. The back pay window works differently. If your spouse died and you are eligible for survivor benefits, but have not yet filed, you may be able to claim up to 6 months of retroactive benefits dating back from your application date. This applies in cases where you were already eligible but simply had not applied yet. So if your spouse passed 14 months ago and you are checking this for the first time, you may be able to collect retroactive survivor benefit pay when you do file. Not 14 months, but 6. 6 months at $1,400 a month is $8,400 sitting in a window that closes the moment your application date is set. When you call SSA at 1-800-772-1213, ask for the earliest possible effective date for a survivor benefit application based on your eligibility, and ask whether you can request retroactive benefits back to that date. They will tell you exactly what window you are working with. One more timing rule exists beyond this one, and this one closes permanently. Number 5, the one with the hard clock. If you are a widow or widower between 57 and 62, and you have been thinking about remarrying, this section applies directly to you. It involves a real, permanent eligibility rule that nobody warns you about before it closes. If you remarry before age 60, you lose your eligibility for survivor benefits from your deceased spouse's record permanently. The window does not reopen if the second marriage later ends. The clock was already ticking on this the day you became eligible. A lot of widows and widowers at 58, at 59, planning a wedding and counting their budget, have no idea that clock is running. If you remarry at or after age 60, you keep your eligibility. Full stop. The real question is what happens when you do not know this rule and you plan a wedding the year before your 60th birthday. This has nothing to do with telling you what to do about your personal life. What I am saying is to call SSA before you sign anything. Call to find out exactly what survivor benefit you may be walking away from, so you can decide with full information rather than finding out about this rule after the fact. The phone script. I am a surviving spouse and I want to understand how remarriage before age 60 would affect my survivor benefit eligibility. Can you tell me what I currently show as eligible for based on my deceased spouse's record? That call takes 10 minutes. What it tells you might change the calculation entirely. You will know before you decide. The same rule applies to divorced surviving spouses. If you were married for 10 or more years and your former spouse has passed, and you are thinking about remarrying before 60, the same clock is running, which, looking back, is either incredibly important to know or incredibly frustrating that nobody told you. Usually, both. Verify the current rules at ssa.gov/benefits/survivors under the Eligibility Requirements section. The 2026 rules are posted there, and these thresholds are subject to change by Congress. Let me recap what we covered today. First, the SSA 10. If you are 60 or older and your spouse has passed, call SSA and ask for a comparison between your current benefit and what you may qualify for on their record. That is the first call. Second, the switch strategy. Ask SSA to compare collecting survivor benefits now while letting your own retirement benefit grow until 70 against what you are currently set up to receive. Write both numbers down before you hang up. Third, the divorced spouse rule. If you were married for 10 or more years to someone who has since passed, the SSA 10 may be available to you even if the marriage ended before the death. Fourth, the back pay window. If you have been eligible but have not filed, ask about 6 months of retroactive survivor benefits when you do apply. And do not forget the SSA 8 for the lump sum death payment. Fifth, the remarriage rule. If you are under 60 and a widow or widower, call SSA before you remarry. One 10-minute call gives you the full picture. Then decide. None of this is a trick, and none of it is guaranteed. Survivor benefits are based on your spouse's actual earnings record and your own eligibility at the time you apply. But every one of these checks costs about 10 minutes, and checking against ssa.gov before you count on anything is free. Janet is one of thousands of widows in the same position. A system built for processing applications does exactly that and stops there. The comparison between what you filed for and what else you may be eligible to check stays invisible until you name the right question. The system does not teach that question, and there is no incentive in the bureaucracy to show you the difference. If this helped, subscribe, and leave me a comment telling me which benefit question you are still trying to answer. I read every one of them. If you know a widow or a widower, one person on a fixed income, who has been depositing a smaller check than they may be entitled to check, send them this video. That single conversation can change what they collect for the rest of their life. Speaking of forms SSA never volunteers, I put together a full video on Form SSA 44, the one page that may lower your Medicare premium after a major income change. If you or someone you know saw Medicare premiums jump after a retirement or after losing a spouse's income, tap the video on your screen right now. It pairs directly with what we just covered, and it takes about 15 minutes to check. I am Dale Corbin. I will see you in the next one.
Before you go, everything I just walked you through, the form numbers, the offices, the exact words to say on the phone, I wrote all of it down. 3 plain English guides, organized by the form. They are at dalecorbinbenefits.com or scan the code on your screen. I am not a lawyer and I am not from the government. These do not promise you anything. They show you how to check in about 10 minutes before you pay another bill you might not owe.